This majestic and gigantic Titanic, fully called Royal Mail Ship RMS Titanic, took 1 year to build and took more than 14,000 men to build it, and it was dubbed as the unsinkable ship. Ironic, right? The ship sailed on the afternoon of April 10, 1912, en route from Southampton to New York City. The ship had 2,240 passengers on board and was known to carry one of the wealthiest individuals from all over Europe. It was designed to boast all of the luxuries with swimming pools, gymnasiums, libraries, and first-class restaurants for all the passengers. All was sailing smoothly until, on the fateful, extremely dark, and cursed night of April 14th to 15th, around midnight, RMS Titanic hit an iceberg that caused severe damage to the ship and led to its ultimate demise, taking with it more than 1,500 lives. Out of 2,240 passengers, only 705 survived. So an event and sinking as big as this surely is a big part of history. While the legacy of Titanic over the years has led to many tributes to the passengers that lost their lives that night, it's not a surprise that an event as big and disastrous as this wouldn't be free of conspiracy theories. We all know that. We all know over the years many conspiracy theories have come forward regarding the case of the sinking of this great ship. But today in this video, we're going to be looking into another conspiracy theory related to the sinking of the ship that's fueled by many conversations and arguments. Titanic sank because of an explosion. Is it true? Did it sink due to an explosion? Well, that's for us to find out with this video. But before we begin, make sure you have subscribed to the channel and press that bell icon for notifications of new uploads so you don't miss out on our videos. Throughout the years, conspiracy theories and speculations regarding the sinking of the RMS Titanic have been spewed by people. Now, hold up. While this theory does support the idea of the Titanic sinking because of an explosion, it doesn't nullify and neglect the idea that the iceberg caused the ship to sink. It does say a collision with the iceberg caused the ship to sink, but the fire caused it to sink and perish into the sea completely. So, with that clear, here we go on the theory. The theory states that several survivors on board have reported that just before the mayhem and the beginning of the ship starting to sink, a loud explosion was heard that came from the lower, probably the attic part of the ship. Several survivors report having heard the explosion from the lower parts of the ship. A first-class passenger and survivor, Major Arthur G., who reportedly said he heard an explosion or two on board, after which the ship began to sink. Another survivor, George Frederick Crow, a steward on board, claimed he heard an explosion on the ship that startled the passengers, after which the rear part of the ship turned and sank. Another survivor that was traveling on the ship, Vaganok Burat, one of the more educated people on board, he stated he was traveling to America with a few excerpts of some books that he had to deliver. On the midnight of the 14th of April, the author relayed that he and his roommate woke up to jolting movements in the ship, and some were injured during the jolting. They heard the explosion and got out of their room carrying some of their essentials. He went on to further tell a crazy survival story that involved him jumping into the ocean and asking for help from an afloat lifeboat, but being denied as the lifeboat might have sunk due to excessive weight. He opened his eyes on a ship some hours later and several days later came to know that a lady on board the life raft forced the passengers to save him by calling him her son. Notice one thing. Throughout his survival tale, Vaganok never once mentioned an iceberg that collided with the RMS Titanic. This further fueled the argument for some conspiracy theorists that an ongoing fire that was there well before the ship sailed caused the RMS Titanic to sink. And that's not all. In a documentary that aired on the 21st of January 2017 on the Smithsonian Channel, Irish journalist Shannon Maloney argued that a fire that started in the hull of the RMS Titanic before the ship went out to sail caused the ship to sink. Due to all the buzz surrounding the Titanic, the fire in the hull was kept quiet. He further said that the fire was massive and the ship should have been kept from sailing. If it had, it could have stopped thousands of lives from being lost. Some of the photos that were photographed before the ship sailed have come forward over the years, showing a 30-foot black streak on the hull of the ship where the iceberg hit the ship. This further fueled the argument of Maloney. He said he further inquired with naval engineers about the black streak and they couldn't properly answer, and that's caught the intrigue of many people. Other than that, according to some engineers at Imperial College London, it's very likely that the streak on the hull that was photographed was due to a coal fire in the hull. Other than that, he said all of the stokers of the ship came forward and claimed that there was a fire in the hull of the ship well before it left Southampton. This was further clarified by an officer on the ship who requested that his name be kept private. He said that there was a fire in the hull and that they were told not to say anything by the higher-ups. In the year 1985, 73 years after the sinking of the Titanic, an expedition led by Dr. Robert Ballard found the wreckage of the Titanic. The items found in the wreckage have led to speculations of more people and some officials in the expedition even suggesting that an explosion that was caused by a long smoldering fire in the hull of the ship in the coal supply area must have led to the sinking of the Titanic. But Dr. Ballard debunked this, saying that the sinking was due to the collision of an iceberg and an explosion could have been due to the collision. Eyewitnesses also claimed that an iceberg collision caused the sinking of the ship. Other than that, Dr. Ballard also explained the 30-foot wide hole in the hull of the ship by putting forward the fact that it must have formed in the hull when it collided with the iceberg, and that the survivors claimed that they heard a deafening and loud roar as the ship tilted vertically, saying that a piece of machinery in her hold must have broken loose and further worsened it as it hit the water, and the black streak in the picture could have been due also to some light issues. So yeah, it might not have been an explosion, but a misunderstanding that was normal to come forward in such situations. People must have confused the collision of hitting an iceberg with explosions. And the explosion is not the only theory spewed out about the sinking of the Titanic. Some people claim that the Titanic sank due to a mummy's curse. A British editor, William Stead, boasted about a mummy's curse that doomed anything that came in its way. People further say that Margaret Brown, a survivor, was carrying some artifacts to be delivered that cursed the ship. Sounds crazy, right? Then there are even crazier theories. A U-boat sunk the ship. The J.P. Morgan theory states that J.P. Morgan planned to kill his rival. And even crazier, one theory suggests that the Titanic never sank, that instead the Olympics was sailed in its place. All of these theories have their supporters who have pretty strong arguments. Experts have debunked all of these theories and say the sinking was in fact due to an iceberg collision. And all the theories that have ensued were in the midst of chaos and for the sake of entertainment. And for some people, the sinking of the Titanic is still unclear. Hopefully, in some years we might get a clear image of what actually happened. Well, that's all for this video. For more such informative videos, make sure you press the bell icon and subscribe to our channel so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded.